Jackie Van Beek, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Hello, nice to be here.
Very excited to have you. Not your first time in the studio, is it? You've been in here to record an episode of Wellington Paranormal?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, how was that experience?
That was quite relaxed, actually, which was pleasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was sitting in this exact chair, answered a few questions, loved it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Like a trial run for this one, maybe.
Exactly.
So we had Karen O'Leary on the podcast a couple of months ago. Part of our process is we reach out to former guests and ask them what to ask guests we've got coming on. So we asked Karen, what should we ask Jackie about? And she only said one thing, and it was, you need to ask her about her choice of merkin for Nude Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
And that came out in the episode as well. With Karen.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
So that's the first question.
That's the first question.
Okay, so choice of merkin for Nude Tuesday. I mean, first of all, I don't know if the listeners know what Nude Tuesday is, but
I do.
You do, yes.
I loved it.
Thank you.
While we start there, let's start with a bouquet rather than the hard merkin chat. Well, we'll get to the merkin. I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. It was for anyone out there, it was a feature film that I wrote and starred in, and my dear friend Madeline directed it. We worked very closely together on it, and it was all performed in gibberish. And we had some fantastic actors in it. Jemaine Clement played our guru.
Saw a lot more of Jemaine than I thought I would.
Yes, there is full frontal nudity. It is called Nude Tuesday, but as I always say to people, it's only on the Tuesday. It's only the last 13 minutes of the film. The whole movie's not Tuesday. Yeah. There's like a Thursday, there's a Friday. It's like, but yeah, that was a beautiful experience. Now the merkin, yes. Now I did debate whether to wear a merkin or not.
A merkin is for the uninitiated.
Yeah, a merkin is like a hairpiece that covers your muff.
Yeah, pubic wig.
Pubic wig, if you like. Yeah. And I was really debating whether to or not. And I thought, well, maybe I will in case we want to do like a hilarious kind of like tilt down on the bus, and so it's in close up, and I thought that could be a little exposing for me. How old was I at the time? I 48 now, so must have been 45 or something. I'm thinking 45-year-old sitting on a bus. If we do, but I was thinking of the shots, so I was like maybe we want to do like a tilt down or a punch kind of zoom thing. So I thought, I'll wear a merkin, but then we're kind of up on the mountain doing all the stuff. I got my merkin. Some actors were wearing them. Some actors chose just to go au naturel. Yeah. And then it was, Jemaine said to me after like a couple of hours of filming, he said, oh my God, I love him so much. He said, hey, Jax, it's pretty weird, like, because when I'm up the hill, because he was leading the trek, and I look down, like, all I can see is like this pubic hair, like your fake pubes, just like kind of, it's really obvious amongst the environment, just kind of shining. He said, I think it's the wrong colour, I think it's the wrong shape. And so I went to a man going, oh my God, this is terrible. Like this is my vision. Like it's got to be natural. It's like we're talking about nudity within landscape, we're talking about beauty, we're talking about, I was like, what am I going to do? And she said, well, it is looking a bit dodgy. I was like, why has nobody told me this? And so I just ripped it off.
What was dodgy about it?
Well, I think it just looked a little fake.
You can spot fake pubes when you see them, man.
I think it was it was too dark, Jemaine said. Okay. I think it was like jet black. And
you can't do jet black. Yeah.
And he said it was the only thing he could see when he turned around. So I was like, and I was a big distance from him. So, it was very important to me that everything was very authentic. And, like one of the reasons I wanted to make Nude Tuesday was to just kind of celebrate nudity, in a non-sexualized way. And so if I'm wearing this like fake, I'm like, oh my God, I'm the creator of this film. Yeah. So I ripped it off. And then Aman's partner, John Baxter, who's just a whiz, he spent like weeks literally in post working on making my real muff look as kind of similar, making the fake muff look as similar to the weeks close up staring at my vagina on his screen downstairs, which I do feel very grateful and sorry for him, but he's brilliant and he did that for us.
So they cleaned it up in post?
It wasn't cleaned it up, just kind of had to match it. Apparently he's done that for Elle Macpherson and me.
Really?
He said, yeah.
That is an amazing fun fact.
Yeah, he's like a post whiz.
Yeah.
You know, on those, you know, like VFX kind of flame kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Those.
Al McPherson in Playboy? Is that like where he... sorry.
I don't know. You'd need to get John Baxter in for an interview.
Yeah. Okay.
But maybe one interview bounces to the next, to the next, to the next.
You've sent Shay down a his mind's gone now. He's not gonna, he's going to be no good for the rest of the interview.
But I was disappointed in myself, really, to have opted for the merkin in the first place, because being kind of essentially Aman and I created this, and we were asking actors to join us in this kind of courageous, ridiculous kind of venture. And so I thought I should have just like flagged the merkin from the beginning. I was just umming and ahhing it because I thought, oh, what if we do a crash zoom and it's like too much, you know?
Do you ever catch yourself in these situations, like we're talking about like merkin regret, thinking what a weird like path my life has taken, that this is like something I'm thinking about?
No, it all feels very kind of integrated, actually. It doesn't... maybe I always knew I was destined for, you know, silly merkinness. I'm not sure. I love it. I mean, I love doing those kind of slightly stranger, slightly edgier, slightly stranger kind of projects. They don't make you rich. This is what I've discovered.
Financially, but in terms of experiences.
Incredibly. I feel very, very rich in terms of experience.
More BTS stuff here, but any of the male actors decide to or opt for a merkin?
I can't remember.
Okay. That's probably more an intimacy coordinator conversation.
Yeah, and I also know that there were...
Should we just try and do 90 minutes on merkins?
I mean, we could. I also know that because, of course, we're on a limited budget, there were only a certain number of merkins. And so it was quite a delicate situation, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, who gets offered a merkin and who doesn't. And
rock, paper, scissors.
Well, yeah, but also you need to be a bit more... You don't want to start like, you know... you don't want to start a kind of... You don't want to stir up unrest in your beautiful, courageous cast when they find out Daphne was offered a merkin and I wasn't, you know. And so it was like,
there's only the landing strip left.
Yeah.
So there was some very delicate conversations about who had the confidence to go without, who needed one to feel like they could participate, you know. And I paid much more attention to the women, I must say. Aman and Tandy Wright, our intimacy coordinator, would have been much more across that because, you know, Aman was directing and intimacy coordinator, so they would have had those conversations. But I can't remember.
Yeah. Good start.
Good
well
start.
done, Karen.
Good start.
Yeah, it's a good little in there. I am going to move us away from merkin chat.
We'll go back there. We'll go back there eventually.
We'll go back.
We'll get back
We've got
there.
Nude Tuesday back in.
But we're both huge Office fans, so we're really excited to hear about this Office Australia, which is launching in October.
Yes.
Can you tell us everything? Like, are there things you can't say, or where are we at?
I probably can't give you like the story beats of every single episode, but I'm sure you probably don't need to know those.
Yeah. Well, does it? How do we ask this? Does it follow? So I'm going to out myself here. I've only ever watched the original with Ricky Gervais, so I've got no idea what happens in the US version of the story. But does
the other 12, right?
I think ours is I can never quite remember, but I think ours is the 14th or 15th version made from around the world.
Yeah. So I've only ever indulged in Ricky Gervais's original. Is it a carbon copy of those story beats?
No, it's not. No. So, of course, we needed to option the original. So this is an Australian, like Amazon Australia, New Zealand plus BBC Australia production and the production company was Banya in Australia. So it was optioned, you know, you have to option the original, which I loved. I love that UK series. And I hadn't watched the US. My kids had all watched the US version when I was offered the job. And so then I sat down and watched the US version after while I was deciding whether or not it's something that I wanted to do with my time.
Which one do you prefer?
I mean, I love them both. They're very different tonally. Yeah. I love British humour. Like, I absolutely love it. It's dark, it's edgy, it's, you know, like the way that Ricky Gervais just like waded into toxic masculinity. Like I was just like, I love this. Yeah. I love it. And so the US version, I'm a huge fan of Steve Carell. And their first season, their first season was a little bit closer in tone. It was still like more American and still chirpier, warmer. He was, more sympathy for him than you do for David Brent, who's such a cocksucker, which I love. It's like the most annoying man in the world.
Yeah. So cringe. It's incredible even 24 years later watching it back now.
But for our group of friends, like that, the UK office was so foundational. It's like the quotes from every episode, and still to this day, like we're still using them.
I think we brought Crufts up the other day as well.
Crufts. But then, the US came out, and that's equally as good. And I struggle with that question, which one do I prefer? Because UK Office has always been my favourite show of all time, but then the US Office is so good.
They did such a great job. Like after the first season, they had to do a reset because people were finding it too edgy, too down, too dark, even though it was nothing close, I didn't think. But and so then it's interesting, you go from season 1, which I do particularly like, the US Office, to season 2, which you go, it ends on an upbeat. It's a warmer tone. We're getting to know him more as a person, so you have more connection with the protagonist. And I think it's equally as good. It's much warmer. It's much more, just like relax and lols, and there's nothing edgy. And so we were very much, the brief for the Australian office was very much in the tone of like, we want it to be something that people just can come home from work, sit back on the couch and just like enjoy. So, so we were very much working in the tone more of the US office. And they did look at me, look at me in the eye in that first Zoom saying, we're not making the UK office. Because they know that I like to be a bit edgy. And, and as New Zealanders, I think we are closer probably to that British, or definitely. A lot of us are closer to that British sensibility. So I definitely was told before I took the job that it wouldn't be the British. It couldn't be. It couldn't be that.
So how does it work? You hear that they're making the Office Australia because you and your husband Jesse are both involved.
Yes.
Are you headhunted to come and work for it, or how did it actually work that you became part of the project?
Yeah, so Banya, which is the production company in Australia, rang me up, and I assume they talked to other directors, but Amazon, and they were excited about me coming on as the setup director. And I was like, my first thought was, why would anyone do that? Like, it's such a dumb idea. Once I found out, well, first of all, UK, we love it. US, smashed, smashed it.
Yeah.
It's like, why would anyone make another? Then I found out there were 14 other versions already, which made me think, this is even stupider.
Yeah.
And then I found out that it's going to be the first version with a female in the lead, and that was Banya BBC idea. And I was like, oh, damn, now I've got to really consider it because it makes me so mad that nobody's done that before now. And I Googled it. I Googled all the different versions, and there were all of these men in their 40s, just staring back at me. And I just thought, oh, fuck this, damn it, I've got to do it. I'm going to do it. And so they approached me, as the setup director. So I ended up pairing up with this fantastic Australian writer, Julie Defina, and we developed the series for Australia together. And then we brought on Jesse, my husband, as another writer, and the three of us wrote, storylined and wrote the episodes. And then, I directed 4 of the eps, Jesse directed 2, and a fantastic Australian director directed 2 as well. Yeah.
That's the coolest job. We were having that same conversation in here with producer Sam before we started. It's like, shit, bit intimidating, isn't it? Having to create the office. And then we spoke about the 13 different versions. But how many of them have been English? Has it just been the English and the American one, and the rest?
No, let me remember. I think Canada made one.
I said that in jest. And of course, you forget about the Canadian version.
Yeah, Canada will have made one. I think.
Please say South Africa.
India, Norway, maybe Saudi Arabia. There are some quite. Yeah, there are some.
I feel like I've seen that on my TikTok algorithm actually, like a Saudi Arabian version.
Yeah. So that's how it kind of came about, and. Yeah, but it really was that female lead thing where I was just like, because I was all ready to say no, I was like, I'm a New Zealander, it's been done before, it's very successful, everyone will compare the shows, it's an old format, I've got lots of original things I want to get off the ground, but then I was like, oh man, we've got to get a female in there. Like we've got to get like a woman in there.
And you've smuggled some Kiwis into the cast as well, right?
Yes, I have. Yes, I've smuggled a bunch of Kiwis, but, of course, very important, of course, that the lead is Australian. So we cast Felicity Ward, who's a fantastic comedian and actor. And so we cast her as the lead. But I did smuggle a few Kiwis in, Josh Thompson, Johnny Bruff, Edith Poor.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of Australians, of course.
And as we'll find out, it seems to be quite a hallmark of the ecosystem that you operate in, is that you collaborate with friends and colleagues on various projects. Does that even feel like work at times because you're just hanging out with your mates?
It does feel like...
I mean, obviously it feels like work, but...
Yeah, like it feels like work, but it's like incredibly joyful and pleasurable. Like, and the kids, because I've got 3 kids as well, and they've all grown up, which is fantastic, where Jessie and I like really look forward to going to work. So, so I guess I'm hoping that the kids think, oh, work can be fun. And of course, sometimes we need to do things that, there's a bit of dread, or you need to do something for the cash or something, like a small thing, a corporate gig or something. And so there's a bit of dread. But on the whole, I feel incredibly lucky. Like I love working, and like you say, I will often, I just work with my friends because I'm often pitching original things that I'm creating with my friends. But then I meet new people along the journey, like Julie DeFina. Like I met her 2 years ago, and now we're like super close, and so excited about working together. And I met Aman Ballantyne. We've started a company together. I only met her like 8 years ago when she cast me on some little thing, and then I was enamored with her and invited her for dinner and asked her a million questions about directing. And that's how you kind of pick up. That's how I kind of pick up friends along the way, through projects. Yeah.
Love it. We've had Tom Sainsbury and Madeline Sami on the podcast, and we like sort of digging away at some of the more perhaps unglamorous roles that they have had and finding some real joy there. So we actually asked Madeline, what should we ask Jackie about? And she replied, oh my God, I've got so many stories. But then she only gave us one story. And I was like, you got more? But anyway.
She's very busy.
Yeah, she is. So
she is busy.
She told us to ask you about Bad Jelly the Witch. She said that you played Mudwiggle the Worm, and you were both in personal turmoil and just had the best time.
We did. I love Madeline. We're born on the same day, May 10th, 4 years apart. Yes, Bad Jelly the Witch, a fantastic story. I listened to the Spike Milligan cassette tape over and over growing up, and then one of my dear friends, Ben Crowder, who's like some theatre genius, he was directing it, and so he cast me and Madeline and a bunch of other great actors in Bad Jelly, and we performed down at the Basement Theatre. Or maybe it was called the Silo at that point, for 3 weeks. Now, the thing, we were all kind of in crisis. It was quite interesting. We'd either had like a family member die or just been dumped by a long-term partner. And of course, as Kiwis, all you do is you drink,
Yeah.
You just drink drink it away.
Was this the introduction to tequila to Madeline? Is that around the same time? Because that's what you told us for the Madeline episode. Back in July last year.
What did I tell you?
You said you taught her how to drink tequila.
Oh, maybe I did.
When she was 15 or something like that during improv lessons.
Oh, no, that was when we very first met. I don't remember. Oh, did I say that? God, that's naughty. We were at a smoke-free kind of talent quest thing. I was a young tutor. I was an 18-year-old like coaching improv. And she was a 15-year-old down from Auckland, and we were in the Hawke's Bay. I do remember sneaking off for ciggies behind bushes in my smoke-free jacket. I don't remember tequila, but it does. No,
your words, not mine.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, I'm sure, and certainly during Bad Jelly, we definitely that was big. That was a big tequila moment for all of us. A fantastic show. Audiences loved it. But boy, we were never drunk for the show, but we were always all hung. There were about 8 of us, and just I don't know why we're doing this kids show, and they would just like party all night and then be quiet. And then the show was so popular that that Ben was like, we're putting on a third show. So we're doing 3 shows a day. And so what we did to cope, which is shocking, is because we had so many costume changes, like it was a really hectic, manic, fun show. And so we'd often be whizzing around the theatre out through the foyer, getting changed. And what we'd do in the third show would be have someone there with shots of tequila. So when we're like going through, it was loose.
Yeah, nice.
But always, and especially if Ben Crowder, the director, ever listens to this, or the programmer at the theatre, always a great show.
Great show. Third show, the best show I've heard.
Really good show. The show,
went on.
Although occasionally Fussy Tour would forget to set Jim the Eagle. And so when we get to the part where Scotty Cotter and Mia Blake are like, they're playing Tim and Rose going, oh my God, it's Jim the Eagle, it's Jim the Eagle. And I'd see them like from the side of stage, look up at the roof, the ceiling, and there'd be no eagle because like Fussy had forgotten like beforehand to like do the pulley and pull him around. Then they go, oh no, the eagle's already flown that way. Maybe he can fly backwards. Maybe he's going to fly backwards across the sky. And so the eagle would fly backwards. Yeah. But the kids didn't know.
And that's improv.
And that's improv. That's desperate improv.
Yeah.
Nice. Speaking of playing a lettuce at a corporate gig in formative years,
that was a low point. Yeah. Oh, God.
I don't want to drag up we've got to balance the highs and the lows, right?
Yeah, like I've had some successes.
Yeah. But what was playing a lettuce? Was it like just a lettuce costume?
That was so I worked for a company. I was very lucky. I came out of high school and I'd really been playing a lot of theatre sports there and loved improv. And I was invited to join a company called The Improvisers, where you do a lot of corporate gigs. And it was a great way as a 17-year-old to earn money, so I can go to the op shop, I can go to the pub, while I was studying. And this particular gig was a low point. It was a corporate gig. It was for Telecom. It was a lunchtime conference. And I had to sit in their makeup chair for an hour. They painted my face green and pinned a lettuce kind of on top of my head, which took a long time. Then I was told you had to crawl under the buffet table and stick my head through a hole. And then there were like dishes, like the buffet all around me. And then all I had to do, and I was, probably getting like $350, which was a lot of money, right? It's like I can shout a few rounds. And all I had to do was when the telecom folks came out for lunch, I just had to do improv some like fantastic banter, like just a banter with them, which was hell because none of them want to talk to a lettuce. They've all been sitting down in some stuffy room for 3 hours. But there was another guy there dressed as a bunch of grapes, thank God, down the other end of the table with a purple face, thank goodness. Because just even knowing that he was going through as much pain as me helped.
Yeah. Just the two
of us.
Humanal.
The rest was real food.
Okay.
It was challenging.
Yeah.
And definitely I didn't last much longer in the company after that because I just thought, I can't. I was probably 8. I'm only 18. Where do I want my life to go? Like, what's my vision? Who am I? Who do I want to be? And I thought, I don't think it's this.
Yeah.
But it was hard to give up that money because I must say, it was great being a part of that company.
Do you know what happened to the grapes?
I don't even remember
We're on the great
name.
things.
I would love to.
That's nice, man.
I'd love to catch up with him. Yeah. I can't remember who it was, but maybe if he listens to this podcast, he could
if you're out there.
Yeah, if the grapes are out there.
Yeah, we could go out for lunch.
Yeah. It feels like a bit of a rite of passage because I'm sure Tom Sainsbury was like a tomato or something.
He was the beetroot in the Kiwi burger.
Yeah.
Right. And Mads was something, she was like a Xerox photocopier or the Sky Tower. I think she was tinfoiled Sky Tower. Yeah. So it seems like a rite of passage.
It kind of is. And I think it's good that I do feel very proud of myself actually as an 18 because the money was so good, and I really enjoyed it. And they were a great company and very generous to me. But I feel very proud of myself thinking, wait a minute, Jackie, what path do I want to walk? And how much dignity do I want to preserve? And I thought, I still lasted at least another 6-7 months after that, Yeah. But then I was like, I can't. If I want to be an actor, a performer, I think I have to just focus a little.
Yeah. I'm going to go after quite a niche area, but it really made me laugh. So across the last week, we've sort of been researching you, and I heard in an interview, it was when you were doing the breaker-uppers, and you would always get asked the same question. I like, how did you come up with the idea? And you're like, Madeline picked up on one time, I was having a coffee. And then in every interview since, where every time you get asked, she kind of makes a big deal of it.
Yeah, Madeline's an asshole. I gotta say that. Madeline's an asshole.
And it's so annoying because it's such an in-joke that no one else finds funny. But I went back and watched 4 different interviews of her doing it, and fuck, it made me laugh.
Yeah, it would make me laugh kind of through clenched teeth. And I do love Madeline. She's not an asshole. Yes. Well, okay. So when I was first asked that question, it was quite fresh, right? So I told the truth. I was making a cup of coffee. Literally, I was making a cup of coffee, and then I thought, I know so many people that want to get out of their relationship but are too scared or they can't face it. And I came up with the idea for the breaker-uppers. What about an agency that does it for you? What if you can farm it out? Great idea, right? Then I rang Madeline and said, hey, do you want to make a movie with me? Do you want to write this thing up with me? And we did, and then we made the movie, and it was fantastic. And so, of course, in the interviews it comes up, and I tell that story because it's the truth. Maybe it's not the best story in the world, but it was true. And I'm a real stickler for the truth. I can't lie. I'm a terrible liar. But then, it's because we're on the circuit doing publicity. Of course, once I tell it, and I'm a good actor, so I try to make it fresh. I was like, oh, let's see. I was having a cup of coffee and, trying to make it fresh. And so it sounds fresh every time. Not manager, like, oh, yeah, weren't you having a cup of coffee, Jack? And I'm like, fuck yeah. Just don't. Now you've made my job hard. Now I can't sound fresh. Yeah. I'm like, oh, yeah. I was having a cup of coffee. And she'd just be rolling her eyes and laughing.
Yeah, I can see you playing it straight. You're trying to recover it, and she's just having the time of her life.
But I do love that about our dynamic, and I do think it is that kind of clowning dynamic, and that's why we work so well together. It's been a while now, but if we're ever performing together, Bad Jelly, the breaker-uppers, because we just, it's a game, we torture the other person. One of you tortures the other, and there's a straight person and there's a clown, and I think I'd love that game, but the interviews, it's like, Mads, come on, this is hard. Yeah. But I do love her for it.
Did you have a lot of time, obviously a lot of time on the road when you're doing these press tours, and do you find, and I'm sort of projecting a little bit because we've been spending a lot of time together, just finding ways of just pushing each other's buttons and just kind of, getting under their skin a little bit? Is that your relationship?
A little.
Sounds like they're far more professional than you and I.
Yeah. Well, Madeline and I were very good friends, before we did the breaker-uppers. So we had a whole history of friendship, and we travelled really well together. And we were pretty good to each other. I think there was only probably once or twice. I remember we were having drinks in the afternoon before, before an intro and Q&A kind of screening. And somehow we got into a little bit of a back and forth about, I can't remember what she was saying, but I remember saying, please don't endow me as a Trump supporter, or please do not do this to me. Please do not. But she had some really good point, so. And then the producer goes, hey guys, we're waiting for you downstairs. You're basically on stage now. That's right. And we had so we're handed a microphone. And we were still kind of quarreling, and we're a little bit drunk. And so I remember we did the whole Q&A kind of through clenched teeth. No, it's been really fun. No, it's been really great. Coming around Australia. No, we couldn't have had more fun. I think that's the only time I remember us getting grumpy with each other, actually.
While we're on here, and I had this later on, but she did retell a story about you guys straight off a long-haul flight. Taika, who's a schoolmate of yours,
yes,
inviting you to a party in LA and being like, it's no big deal, just come along. And you guys not showering, basically just hitting the party, and it was like Seth MacFarlane's 40th?
Yeah.
At the Chateau Marmont?
Yeah. That was great. I felt like a real Kiwi. Mads and I were like, oh yeah, let's go see Taika. That'll be great. He's down the bar, he's down the bar, and he was down the bar, and it was great. We get there, we have a couple of tequilas and whatnot, chatting, and he was like, hey guys, I've got to go because I've got to go and have a chat with someone. Do you guys want to come? And we were like, oh, where are you going? And he was like, oh, it's this, I don't know. He said, it's like this party. You're welcome to come. I can probably get you in. He looked at what we were wearing. He was like, I can probably get you in. And we were like, okay. So we all get into this. There are like 3 big taxis suddenly pull up, and we're all piling into these things. somehow he managed to get us in. And then we found out he had to have a chat with Leonardo DiCaprio. And I was like, oh shit. And there were all this like these really famous people. We were like super underdressed. So of course what we do is we like have a drink. And then what Madeline and I decided to do, because we're feeling annoying and mischievous, is we kept going up to Taika going, hey, Tykes. And he's having this really like in-depth, like it's a work conversation, hey, Tykes. And he's like, yeah, what? Fun. He's like, yeah, what is it, guys? What is it? What do you need? What is it? And I said, do you know where the toilet is? And he was just kind of...
The snort's coming out.
And he just kind of smiled and was just like, it's over there. And anyway, but we were kind of doing that kind of stuff at the party and then kind of looking around and thinking, who should we talk to? Yeah, that was funny.
Did you land on anyone? Did you have any interesting conversations? Did you play any roles? Did you... pitch any ideas?
No.
Did you do any bits?
We were kind of like Kiwis, just kind of keeping very low profile. Yeah, I don't think we had any I think we tried to say hi to Leo on his way out. He had a huge entourage. I think we tried to kind of do a bit of banter, always a mistake. Oh, hey man,
Such
hey
a
Leo.
Kiwi thing to do.
And I think he kind of looked up and there was a kind of, not look of disdain, but a look of like, I don't have time and I don't know who you are. He wouldn't have remembered we were the people that were asking about the toilet, which was genius in our mind. We'd done the work to set up for the big convo. And he kind of, and then trailed out with a whole lot of his young people. And we were like, wow, that's a lot of young people.
Right. I want to take us back to the start.
Oh, sorry, a memory. Paris Hilton. We did have a really nice conversation with Paris Hilton and she was really lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
That's it.
That's good.
Topic? When I remember something as a 48-year-old, when I remember like a name or something, it's like, oh, I've got to tell I've remembered something.
Got to get this out.
That's a good name. Yeah,
that's a great name to throw out at a party.
Yeah, I remembered that. That was true.
Right, I'm going to loop us back to the start. One of the bits of info that really caught my eye was that your mum was a puppeteer for the Crippled Children Society.
Correct.
And I had questions about that. What does that mean?
So, yes, my mother worked for a company which was then called the Crippled Children's Society. This is back in the 80s.
Don't cancel us. It was a simpler time.
It was a simpler time. And that later they became the CCS, I think, as times moved on a little, which we all know stands for Crippled Children's Society. And so she was a puppeteer with her colleague, Jenny Mills, and they would tour schools as part of kind of an educational program about disabilities. So it really was touring primary schools and intermediates, really with the messaging, people with disabilities, just like every other kid here, you don't need to see them as other. And so they toured the puppets came from America and they lived at our house. It was quite cool in this big red Velcroed bag. And they were kind of like, not life size, but they were huge. So I kind of grew up with there was Mark in a wheelchair, Johnny was blind, Mandy was deaf, and it was fantastic until, of course, they would come to my school, and one of them would have to do the deaf voice and things, and I'd be at the back, standing close to someone who I had a massive crush on, who had never noticed me and thought I was going to die, But amazing to be around that kind of creativity. It's just and it seemed so normal to me growing up, but they were always rehearsing at our place, Mum and Jenny. And then, of course, they moved into more, they then were employing other younger teams, people coming out of drama school. I think Andrew Foster and Claire Waldron coming out of drama school, and they would tour and Mum and Jenny would be their, teachers and kind of start to manage as they.
So is it not too long of a bow to connect that exposed to that kind of creativity was a huge influence and sort of set you on the path that you went on? Yeah.
And sometimes Mum would say, oh, can you read over the script or can you help me with the script? And, even I'm an 8-year-old and things. I was more excited about kind of playing with the puppets.
I saw in a recent Instagram post you crediting your mum and dad for supporting your endeavours.
Oh, yeah.
All the way through. And it is clear to see that was set in motion from an early age.
Yeah, they're the best. I just feel so lucky to have had parents who just were always just encouraged me to do what I wanted, what I was excited in. And I think, as I said in their Instagram post, no matter how bad or shonky the shows I was putting on. And they were like coming straight out of high school, and I'm putting on some weird sketch shows and stuff that make no sense. They would be there without fail. Opening night, bunch of flowers, like buy me a wine, congratulate all my friends, and just fantastic. And of course they, well, not of course, we're incredibly lucky. They're big lovers of like theatre, opera, ballet, devised theatre, like anything in that. So we were, as kids, always going to these shows, in the city. I grew up in Wellington, at Downstage, Bats, like strange kind of installations, and then the opera, which I would sleep through most of the time, the Royal New Zealand Ballet, which also I would have naps through. But and I also think in hindsight, Mum would sometimes take us when we were young because it was probably cheaper than getting a babysitter. And so she'd be fine with us just like stretching out and having a nice long sleep while she could watch the ballet.
Parenting hacks. Yeah.
So was it always going to be a case that you would go into some sort of the arts, even through high school? Were you thinking about that as your kind of career direction?
Yeah, like I think it was pretty clear to me that when I came out of high school, I enrolled in a full-time year of contemporary dance at the Wellington Performing Arts Centre because I really loved contemporary dance and dance in general. But I also enrolled in a full-time course at Victoria University. So I was trying to balance these both full-time courses, of course, and I've continued to operate like that in my life, completely overcommitted, but very excited about everything.
Do you operate best in chaos?
I operate best with a balance. So I really like, I'm very addicted to kind of chaotic situations in my work, and chaotic, but still being able to still get good stuff on the hard drive. Do you know what I mean? With an outcome, with a positive outcome. But I've done a lot of teaching as well in various, schools and institutions, and I do get a real thrill out of like a kind of like a creative craziness and where things are teetering out of control. So a lot of my short films, I'd always work with like non-actors, always children, as many animals as I could, just to kind of keep everything very spontaneous. But I really am also someone who's always needed to then just kind of withdraw and just kind of regroup by myself and just be in bed reading my book and having my cup of tea. And I need both. I don't really like a chaotic personal life as much these days. Although it was pretty. Yeah. When we were young, that partying's always hectic and chaotic, which is fun.
That sort of controlled chaos is probably similar to Taika, I imagine. But like you went to Onslow College with him, right? Like, yes. Were you friends at high school?
We were. We did. I think I met him in my fourth form music class. He was Taika Cohen at the time, and we were all sitting alphabetically. The teacher wanted us to sit alphabetically in that class just to try and control or have some sort of structure, I guess. And so I remember, telling Mrs. Hubbard very firmly, because Taika was Taika Cohen, and I was like, no, but I'm Jackie Van Beek. It's not Van, which is a complete lie. I'm under Van Beek. But I was like, no, it's Van Beek. And so I managed to get a seat up
Sorry,
with
I keep playing footsies with you.
Oh, no, it's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
Do you?
So I managed to get a seat up, I remember, by him with Cole. And so, we were friendly. We did drama together, music together, things like that. Lots of productions in like sixth and seventh form.
The leads in like school productions?
I think we both would have kind of, it's not like the two of us were like best friends. I had my best friend, he had his whole set of people, but we're definitely in the same, Onslow College, there was only 1,000 people. So we all knew each other. We're all going to the same parties, and we're all in the same productions and playing lead roles. And
like in sport, if someone goes on to be one of the best in the world, you can kind of see in their teenage years or at high school, like, oh, they are a talent. They're going to go all the way. Could you see that with Taika? Like, was that obvious or evident what he would go on to achieve in those sort of teenage years?
Look, I think there were a whole bunch of people at that school, doing art, photography, drama, that seemed, when you're that age, like, and not that you kind of have this perspective on it that I'm just about, but, you look at them and you go, everyone has so much potential. Like, it depends what they do with it. And so, Taika and I were still friends as we, I moved into town. I went to, as I said, dance university. We're still doing some shows together. We're kind of still in the same circles. And I think, I think he showed immense talent. And he is incredibly a charismatic person. But he also, what I observed in him, which some other people didn't have, is he also had like the grit and determination and the passion to drive things forward. Some people are all like so talented and stuff, but they don't do the work to like get that application into the film commission to make the short film or put on the show. And so he was always very, we'd all still, not just draw up storyboards in the weekends. We'd still all, share a bottle of vodka and things, But like you could see that he was incredibly talented. But then I could see potential in so many people. I was also friends with Jemaine, who also went, and Bret, and in fact, all of these people are surrounded with. I was like,
it's an incredible time, wasn't it?
Potential, yeah, and. And I have great, those guys are incredibly successful, but I also have like great love and admiration for some of the people that went more into community work, and, it's like the measure of success is kind of interesting, and a lot of that group went into different fields, architecture or visual arts or VFX, and, it's great, just think back on the on high school and have a look at what everybody did, and then of course some people I just lost track of course.
Yeah, Mr. Grapes.
Mr. Grapes. Yeah, Mr. Grapes.
But is it just coincidence that you had such an incredible group? Jemaine and Bret and yourself and Taika, all growing up together and coming up and doing incredible things. So was there anything different about that era or that period of time which contributed to the success?
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, I think we were all in Wellington, which is a kind of, quite a small, compact city. So you're going to be bumping into people all the time and collaborating with a lot of the same people. I think Bats Theatre had a lot to do with it. We were all doing various shows down at Bats. University, we're kind of all doing kind of various papers, dropping papers and then taking new papers. But then I think there was some other coincidences. Like I moved into a flat with my sister and my boyfriend, and I started a writing group, because I was incredibly like excited and motivated about just creativity. I started a writers group, and I'd met Jemaine somehow, maybe through Duncan Sarkis or something at the university or through Joe Randerson or something. And I said, hey, come to my new writers group. There's only 5 of us. And I had this big rocking chair that I'd got in an op shop, and everyone else kind of sat around on cushions. Like, welcome to my writers group. Amazing. And he came in a bit late, and he said, I hope it's okay. I brought my friend Bret, who's actually your neighbour. And so that's how I met Bret. And we were living next to one another, and so we ended up doing, with some other friends, some, mad devised sketch shows and things, and so there were a couple of coincidences, but I think smallish town, Bats Theatre, the university, were all kind of hovering around the same sorts of things, and and Joe Randerson, Joe Smith, Andrew Foster, Jason White had a company called Trouble, so I was working a lot with them as well, and there was just a kind of whole group of...
It's such a great Kiwi story, like that you've all come out of this, I won't say unlikely situation, but just emerged from it, because your sister was telling me about like Flight of the Conchords workshopping stuff in your lounge in the flat. Is that right? Like these guys kind of the chrysalis of their characters was done right in front of you guys.
To be honest, I can't remember.
Yeah,
but it doesn't.
Tequila, isn't it?
It's a long time ago now. Period. But that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we were all trying to make short films together. I mean, I was constantly trying to talk Jemaine into doing these ridiculous things with me. Like, Bret and Jemaine did a short film with me and my friend Lauren Taylor. And that was hilarious. And then I was always trying to convince Jemaine to do stuff with me. I wanted to do a dance, which we did do. It was a song called Wiggle, Wiggle, Wiggle that I was obsessed with. I mean, it was an awful song. And he was like, oh, Jax, no, do it. And I was like, please, like, it's going to be so fun. He's like, how much rehearsal? I was like, half an hour, and so he'd come and do that with me. And then I remember my friend Gentian Lupi and we directed like the university show one year. And I said to Jemaine, like, I really want you to narrate it. And he really was like, oh, Jax. He's like, oh, God. He's always trying to get out of it. Still to this day, Nude Tuesday, he's like, oh, Jax.
Yeah, I was going to, was that kind of part of that same theme as getting him to Nude Tuesday? Like just relentlessly chasing him, saying, you need to be in this.
Absolutely. But I remember for the university show, he said, okay, look, it was kind of like one of those fairy tales where they give you a task that can't be completed. You know, he said, okay, look, I'll be in it. And it was opening like the next night, you know, kind of, or a couple of days later. He said, I'll be in it if I can be in an electric wheelchair. And I was like, okay. And we had no budget. And so I just ran all over the university. I'm going to every single department. And I rang him up or bumped into him on the street or whatever. I said, hey, I got one. And he was like, seriously? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay. So he came in for like a quick rehearsal and then he did the show and he was fantastic.
Amazing.
It's so good. Yeah. I want you to link us up to Alice Springs, but I've got a sort of a gap. So you leave Onslow College in 93. Alice Springs is 2006. There's kind of 13 years in between. So this is before you've done any sort of film directing stuff. So what are you doing across that period?
I was doing theatre. I was at Victoria University, and so I spent 5 years doing an undergrad, 3-year degree because I'd drop out and do like, I'd be offered like a theatre and education job, so I can tour the country doing theatre, in schools, earn some money. So I'd drop out and do that, and I was still doing dance in that first year, and I was doing a lot of my own shows at BAT. So the degree kind of, I managed to fit in really in between my creative projects. And then I started becoming interested in, because most of my shows were devised, so I'd work as an actor, kind of writer and director. But then I started becoming a bit more interested in like writing plays. And one of my mentors in Wellington was Jean Betts, a fantastic writer-director. And then I kind of moved to Auckland actually when I was about 23, and kind of, when you move cities, you can kind of reinvent yourself a little or redefine and again, it was one of those things like when I was the lettuce, I was like, okay, what's my vision? What do I want? Like I'm moving to a new town. I only knew Johnny Bruff. I knew one person in town. And I was like, I'm going to establish myself and work really hard at being a writer, a writer plus an actor. And so I started writing plays and getting little commissions from Young and Hungry and doing some acting in Auckland and getting to know the world up there. But then all the time I was doing comedy as well. So Johnny Bruff and I, we created a show with Jodie Malloy called My Brother and I Are Porn Stars. And so we were touring comedy shows. I was doing Bad Jelly. I was doing a lot of theatre. I was working a lot with Christian Penny, who became another mentor of mine. Christian. Yeah.
He's High Performance Sport New Zealand now.
Oh, right, yeah, because he was at the drama school at Toi Whakaari for a while. And so he was a real mentor for me. So I did a lot of work with him and, a lot of Duffy Books and Homes, touring the country, just earning some money and just kind of learning and acting and writing. And
learning the craft. I don't undersell the, sorry, I butchered me and my brother are porn.
My brother and I
are porn stars. You did that hundreds of shows, right? Mm-hmm. Around the world. You're mastering your craft there. That's such an output. Yeah,
we did over 200 shows.
Is it?
Yeah. It was a fantastic, it was a mad show, very absurd. It was a huge penis puppet, that I would operate. I'd have to get behind Johnny and put my arm right through this huge penis puppet and the penis would start talking to him. And it was, we devised it and we did a lot of, I've created a lot of shows in Scout halls. So Sir Baden Powell was the name of the kind of penis character. And so Sir Baden Powell would talk and give advice, the penis would give advice to Johnny Bruff's character. And it was all kind of about incest and very weird things, but really polarised audiences. But people seemed to love it. And so we went to Edinburgh with it and, the festival, and then got picked up to do a couple of seasons at the Soho Theatre in London. But all of the shows I was making, either people would love it or hate it, would either get 4-star reviews or 1-star reviews, But I like that. And I remember Steve Locke, who was and maybe still is the programmer, we got a 1-star review. We sold out our whole first season at Soho. We got a 1-star review. And we were kind of so apologetic to Steve. We're so sorry. And I remember him saying, oh, it's absolutely fine. He said, what we don't want to do is program 3-star shows.
Yeah.
He said, but this is not, do not feel bad about this. This is absolutely fine. And you've sold out your season, probably on the title. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that stuck with you, right?
It really stuck with me. Of like, there was someone who, when I was young, kind of, I felt so bad. We were in London and we'd failed, He was like, no. This is exactly the show. These are the shows we like to program. And that really stuck with me. And I still try to, hence me making Nude Tuesday. It's not going to be a kind of 3-star crowd pleaser. Some people just don't get it. It's in a weird language. People are nude. But then The Guardian gave us a 5-star review. But then quite hard to sell that film because it's not for the masses, So it's, but but I could keep reminding myself I have to do some more commercial things. And like The Office, have to do some things to pay the mortgage.
But the show links you up with your husband. Is that right? You're touring it to Melbourne and you meet up with Jesse?
Yeah, that's right. I bumped into Jesse because we had some mutual friends like Joe Randerson, who's amazing Wellington theatre guru. I bumped into him a couple of times, but that's when I met him. I was performing, my brother and I, Porn Stars over there. He was performing in a couple of shows. He was performing with his company, the Four Knolls, and also doing his new character, Wilson Dixon, over there. And Johnny was staying at his house. We met on the second night I was there. I'd moved over because I was there for a month to perform, and I'd had a bit of a hectic time, very, very social. and I was like, Jackie, again, it was one of those moments where I said, Jackie, it's time to calm down. It's time to refocus your attention.
Do your taxes.
Do my taxes. That's right. I was 7 years behind in my tax returns. I really wanted to refocus my energies on creativity rather than socializing, shall we say, and moved into my sister's, laid out all my taxes, was going to be bonding for a month. And then the next day I met Jesse and packed up all my taxes and said to my sister, oh my God, I'm moving in with Jesse Griffin. And she was like, what? And so I moved in with him. And it was all, yeah.
And you got engaged within a month?
Yes, he, on day 4, me, Johnny and him went for a kind of walk, out in some Australian kind of rocks. We saw a redback spider. I remember. It's like, oh, wow, this is so Australian experience. And I remember, we came back and Johnny tootled inside. And I remember Jesse turned to me and he said, this was like day 4. He said, should we just get married and have kids? And I was like, yeah, I think we should. And then a couple of weeks later, during the festival at some party kind of thing, he proposed. And I was like, he didn't have a ring or anything, not that organised. And I was like, yeah, okay. It was quite low key.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it feels good. I was like, it felt good to both of us because we'd all been, we'd both been with a bunch of different people, and it's like, yeah, I think it was good.
So I spoke to Jesse.
That's so awesome.
And this is, he's like, if it was a script for a rom-com, you'd say it's too much. He's like, the first time you met, you had this long embrace, which was longer than it should have been. And there was just something there. And it was like, you got engaged straight away. And he said there was one night at a bar where there was someone singing a song and the spotlight went on you guys and it was soon after he'd proposed or something.
Yeah.
And the singer was singing a love song to you guys specifically. He's like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was a mad kind of coincidence, I think, because he, like I said, at this kind of party, it was a showcasey thing. Yeah, there was someone on stage, there was some follow spots flying around the room, and he'd said, will you marry me? Even though we'd kind of already decided, I thought. But I was like, oh, yeah, okay. But it was a bit more like a question, will you marry me? And I said, that's when I was like, yeah, for sure. And then the spotlight came on us. It was so weird. It was like, yeah, just complete coincidence. It was, yeah. And the hug was weird.
Yeah.
It was great.
Something special, eh?
Yeah, he'd just finished performing because he'd come to see my dress rehearsal because of Johnny and stuff. For my brother and I, Porn Stars. So he'd seen what a bizarre show that was, which was good. How he was like, ooh, it's good that he knew the kind of person I was from that show,
For the audience that don't know, to zoom out, 16 years together, 3 kids?
18.
I don't know how many years, but yeah, it must be because our eldest is 17 and I was pregnant at the wedding. So about 18 years.
Is there a message in there? Just go. If you find someone, just go. Just get engaged straight away.
Well, I know we had this hug. It was strange, and he just felt like a very familiar soul. Or I just felt like, you feel, even though we don't know each other, you feel so familiar to me. And I did say to him a couple of days later, I was like, oh shit, I hope we're not cousins or something. I did, because it was like we felt so familiar to each other. There were so many crossovers. Like, we were both born in the South Island. We'd both studied the same sort of theatre. We both loved country music. It was like we both loved tramping. And it was like, and I was just like, shit, fuck, I hope we're not related. Yeah. It'd be such a bummer if we're related.
It would be a bummer. It would be
such a great story.
It was very simple. It was very, it wasn't one of those kind of rom-coms where it's like, I don't know, where it's all kind of, like your 20s kind of stuff. It was more just like, what a beautiful human being. Like, how interesting and talented that, I found him. It's like, God, I felt like I'd never get bored of you because I love what you do and you're eternally interesting. That was the thing. I was very kind of curious about him and felt like I'd always have questions for him. I came back to New Zealand, I got my things, moved over, and we were just kind of taking small jobs. So he had that lined up in Alice Springs. And he said, do you want to come up to Alice with me next week? And I said, yeah, but can you get me a job so I can earn some money? And so he got me a job, a completely different sort of job, which kicked me into filmmaking, actually, quite by chance.
Yeah, did you just fall? I've not seen the short film that you ended up making, but what was it about the kids that kind of connected with you and you wanted to do something later on?
Yeah, because I've been doing a lot of teaching, which I love, like teaching drama, teaching kids, inciting kind of mischief and naughtiness in people. And so I'd already kind of started kind of devising shows more as a director, so kind of working up kind of directorial skills, but kind of in theatre. And working with a lot of young people through various institutions. And then this job in Alice was coming in to kind of teach. It was for a company called Tangentyere Circus. And so it was teaching groups of Indigenous kids that lived on the various town camps around Alice. And it was for the desert symposium. That's right. And we were doing clowning and mask work. And so we needed to do a little show. I remember 2 months pregnant, and I kept like going, okay, guys, just 1 second, go off to the bathroom, like vomit, come back. Okay, where were we? Right, Rodney, you need to concentrate. So I kind of fell into that. And then it was after we did that week of work, which I loved working with those kids, very chaotic, very beautiful. We put on, a fun little show. And then it was my boss, Sarah Gosling, who said, everyone wants you to come back and do something more with the kids because it went really well. And she said, is there something, what would you like to do? And I said, well, maybe, because I really loved these two kids, Jessie and Rodney. They were just such a great double act. Rodney he spoke Western Aranda and was partially deaf, and Jessie was this 12-year-old who spoke English and Western Aranda and would kind of look after him a bit. But they were very mischievous together. And I said, oh, maybe I'll come up and do something with Jessie and Rodney if that feels good to you guys and to the community. And she said, what kind of thing? And I said, well, maybe, I don't know, is it easy? Maybe we'll do a little short film and we'll take, so we got some stories from the kids and things, and we chose one of those stories. And I came up and worked with the community on the town camp, Trucking Yards Town Camp, to make a little 7-minute film. And so, I did kind of fall into it, but it was very much an extension of my theatre, working with young people and just like having a community project and it kind of growing from there. Yeah.
So then you kind of cut your teeth and you're into directing, right? And you do 5 short films and a short doco, and you're kind of like learning your craft before The Inland Road in 2007, which took 7 years in the making. So that's a big deal, obviously, your first feature film. You're using all of those skills that you've learned to produce it. What's interesting about that process?
Well, I think what I did, because I've been writing plays, which were kind of long form, I thought, I was very passionate about going into long form film. After I became enamored with film through One Shoe Short, this short film I was talking about. But I kind of was like, but I want to do, because I've been writing longer stories, like 60-minute plays, so I wanted to go to a feature, but also knew I had no idea how to write a feature film, like I've only just started. So as frustrating as that thought was to me, at least I had the awareness that I needed to understand the medium more. So I made one short film. I made 7 short films over 7 years. I made one every year. At the same time, I was developing this feature-length script. So I was kind of teaching myself filmmaking, and of course, the people who I was working with were really helping me and teaching me, and I was learning, especially through the edit process, of what not to do as a director or a writer.
But are you hands-on editing all your own stuff as well, or learning, like shoulder surfing alongside someone to better understand the process of?
Well, because I had no money to do it, I managed to cobble together like a few $1,000s. I was writing, directing, and editing my first 2, because I just didn't have money to pay anyone. I didn't really know anyone because I was in Australia. I didn't have any of my networks. But a friend of Jesse's actually put me in touch with some of the VCA grads from Melbourne. And I was so lucky I was put in touch with Ari Wegner, who now I think has had a couple of Oscar noms. So she shot most of my short films with me. So I learned a lot from her because she was just a VCA grad, a cinematographer. And I worked with some so I was like 30 when I started making films. These guys were all like 23, but knew much more about film. But I knew about storytelling, and I knew about directing actors, and I knew about how...
Well, you knew about life as well.
And some life, yes. And
you're a mum at that stage as well, so you're...
Well, it all kind of collided, because I made One Shoe Short when I was 8 months pregnant up in Alice. And I remember ringing Qantas and going, so what would be the last day, say, a pregnant woman could fly on one of your aeroplanes? And they gave me the date. So I was like, okay. So then I just worked out the schedule. So we shot for 4 days before that date. And then I flew back from Alice to Melbourne to have the baby. Yeah. It was cool. It was so exciting.
So now you're in and you're directing, but you're also acting, and we'll read out all of the.
Slow down, man. You got this.
So now you're in it, right? And you're directing, but you're also acting, and you're kind of on the scene. And a long list of things. We don't have time to mention them all, but one I did want to stop in on is What We Do in the Shadows in 2014, because this is totally improvised, right? It's a vampire film. You don't know anything about vampires. You're getting called in. That must have been just quite a ride, quite an exhilarating experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved making that movie. They'd made a proof of concept, I think, Johnny and Jemaine and Taika, which they tell me that they had wanted me in. I can't really remember. Apparently in Wellington they'd say, we want you in this, we want you in this. And apparently I'd be like, okay. And apparently I didn't turn up for the show. So somehow I missed that one. It was a bit chaotic back then, I would have been doing some other rehearsal for something and forgotten. But then, they always said, it'd be great if you're available to, to be in the feature. And so it was fantastic. Yeah, I think I just had my 3rd baby, and they were fantastic because I was down on set. They'd set up, because Taika had a young child as well, Taika and Chelsea at the time, and so they'd have these, these trucks parked just outside set, so we'd all be in the vampire costumes and things, and he'd come out, and then I'd just breastfeed the baby, and there's all these vampires around and werewolves and stuff. It was so cool.
Did you realise when you were making it how big it would become when you're actually in there on set? Are you going, there's magic here? Or was it just another project?
Well, no, because I think already Taika and Jemaine, independently of each other, were picking up it already felt like they were on this kind of exciting upward trajectory. There'd been Eagle versus Shark, and I think Jemaine, he would already be doing Concords by then. So it was oh, cool, I get to come and play with my old mates who are pretty famous, in my mind, pretty famous even, by then. Now, of course, they're a lot more famous, but back then you think, God, they're my famous friends, so it felt like such a kind of juicy project, it was so fun, and they'd cast so many great people, and they were in it themselves, and no, it definitely felt like I mean, I never really think about like things like box office success or things like that, or career trajectory for people. But I could feel it was a juicy project, if you know what I mean. I felt like it's something that people would delight in.
What's the nuts and bolts of like improvising a scene? Does it, they just give you kind of like, how does it work? They say, here's the idea. This is what you do. Yeah. Do make it come to life.
It's. I think I kind of direct in the same way, and I know that Madeline does as well. And I do a lot of work with Jemaine, now as on his TV shows as a director, and so we all kind of work in a similar way. And maybe it's because we all come up through theatre, I'm not sure, but they would say, okay, this is the scene, so you're driving, and we want you to talk about this, so just kind of, this is the subject, so if you just start talking, we'll just start rolling, and then we'll just yell stuff out. So I'm just like, because I can just like riff on anything, and so I'd be riffing along, they'd be hiding in the front seat or on the floor in the back or something, and then, and then I remember Jemaine would just kind of yell out through the take, go, oh, that's good, okay, that's good, that's getting a bit boring now, just change to something else. And I'll be like, okay. So then I'd just start talking about something else, and then they might yell out, you would do a lot of like, and I don't know, it would depend on different productions, of course. I don't know if Taika was doing this on Thor, but certainly when I direct, if I can, if it's permissible with producers and things, I will just talk to the actors through the take. Like with The Office, I did that the whole time. I was like, okay, great, let's try that again, but try not using that word. Maybe start with this, or maybe maybe walk in and look at that person and say something to them first. And so it's very much just kind of on the roll, recording.
Yeah. How much improvisation is there in The Office?
There's bits and pieces, but not as much with the tight schedule, not as much. Oh, but there is bits and pieces. Yeah, there's bits and pieces.
Does every actor react well to that style of direction? Does it take a specific actor to be able to improvise and turn it on?
So I, like as a director, I will always ask the actors first, actors that I don't know, like how would you feel, if I'm, if I'm guiding you through, or would you prefer to do a take where I'm, not talking and then we cut and then I'll give you some notes so we go again. So I'll always ask, but as a director, I always ask for as many rehearsals as I can get, like, a couple of weeks rehearsal for a feature or for a show. Like we did 2 weeks rehearsal for The Office, and so just lots of improv in a scout hall, lots of improv, lots of games, and just also me going, look, this is how I like to work. How can you cope with it? So we brought cameras in, so they're used to the camera, and I'd be talking through. I was like, do you like that? Do you how's that feeling? And so they get used to the way that I like to work. And if someone really doesn't like to work like that, I don't work with them like that when they're in a scene. I'll just do it a different way. Yeah.
So 2018, Breaker Uppers.
Yes.
How'd you come up with the idea? No. The question I had is, this is obviously like big box office Breaker Upper. You've written it and directed it and starred in it. And on opening night, do you just remember the feeling of, holy shit, I've actually done this? Was there a real sense of fulfillment?
Yeah, well, because Madeline, Sami, and I created it together. We did everything. I came up with the idea, pitched it to her like that day, and so then we wrote, directed, and starred in it together. And it was a real. We wanted it to be like a real circus, like a real kind of carousel. So all of the heads of department and people that we asked to help us, we were like, it's going to be like a circus, and who's up for that and who's not up for that. But then I think it was standing. We opened the Sydney Film Festival. It was the opening film. And I remember standing in that beautiful, beautiful theatre with Madeline, and we had Celia Piccola on stage with us and Anna Scotney. And that was just like, whoa. Like, and I think we even said that to the audience. We're like, whoa, this is like insane. Like that felt like, wow, we've really made something that all of these people want to watch, and that was like a moment of, because you don't kind of like, well, I can go through life and I forget to kind of really mark those moments or remember those moments, but that was one of those moments where I was like, this is really, really exciting. Like, this is an amazing thing. All of these people assembled for the opening night film of the Sydney Film Festival, and I did think, well done us.
Yeah.
You know, like what? I mean, that's something to like be proud of. Yeah. Sometimes I think we all forget to be proud of ourselves.
Yeah.
I do. I'm always like, oh man, but I've got that deadline on Wednesday. I was like, oh great, that went well. I've got a deadline Wednesday. Got to have that call. And it's like you forget to go, wait a minute, that was just awesome.
Is it similar when you sign that same project to Netflix US? Are you patting yourself on the back for that? Because that seems like a pretty big potential audience that your work gets exposed to again.
Yeah, I mean, we were really excited about that sale for two reasons. One is like, oh my God, we get paid. Like, oh my God, a New Zealand film where you actually get you get money, you know, after you've finished making it. Because we took pretty small fees. Like that's what we decided to do with, you know, Kathy O'Neill and myself and Madeline. We sat down and go, let's take small fees, put it all on screen, and just hope like hell it sells. And then it did. And the other thing, which was even I was going to say more exciting, but probably equally exciting because money is really useful, was this is going to, like, potentially a lot of people will see this and people in other countries, like America. You know, it's like, so it did feel really exciting.
Yeah, because it's a coming of age of that sort of Kiwi comedy style almost that What We Do in the Shadows opened the door to, and then everyone else has sort of flooded through now with all this amazing kind of content.
Yeah, because
that bumbling Kiwi charm.
That's right, because we opened it at South by Southwest, and I remember afterwards everyone said to Mads and I, they're like, we love Kiwi comedy, you know, and then they would have to kind of like explain what that meant to us, you know, and they were like, oh my God, you guys, this movie is like so dry. And Matt and I would look at each other like, this is like the bounciest, most colourful movie we'd ever, you know, could envisage. Yeah. But they're like, it's so dry, it's so bad. Yeah. We were like, is it? But yeah, they seem to be very excited about Kiwi comedy, you know, like you say, with all of Taika's work and the Concords. And so
with that, when you get the opportunity to direct on What We Do in the Shadows, the TV series, which, by the way, when I saw your name on the titles, I was buzzing to be like, it was that moment where you know, when you grow up and you're like, oh, that's a Kiwi. Yeah. Even though it's like a Kiwi project, to see that, like, I've got so many questions about Matt Berry, but working with Matt Berry, but two, like, again, is that just another example of still doing the same work but just on a bigger platform with a bigger budget? Do you change your technique at all?
Yeah. Well, that job was offered to me as actually going back just briefly to Wellington Paranormal, which was my first TV job that Jemaine. You know, Jemaine and I, you know, obviously have had worked together and known each other a long time. And then he said, do you want to come and direct a TV show, Wellington Paranormal? I'd never directed any television. I was like, sure. And so then after we did that and it went really well and we worked really well together, he invited me on for the first season of What We Do in the Shadows we shot it in Toronto. And I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, if I'm invited to do that, I'm going to say yes. Like, it's an amazing opportunity and I know the show, I know mockumentary, but it was that's been the biggest step in terms of scale for me. So coming from my little short films, my little indie features, and Wellington Paranormal, you know, had a bit of a bigger budget, but still very contained. I knew everyone. Like, I know all the crew, you know, it's in Wellington where I grew up. And then walking onto those kind of studio lots is like, oh, holy hell, this is big time. And there are celebrities. And so it was amazing and I loved it. But it was a real learning curve, and like I had to adjust my way. Like, I'm not just working with my mates. You know, there's a lot of producers, there's a lot of people watching you, there's a lot of opinions about how you're doing and what you're doing, and you know, it's quite like you feel like you're really being watched. But you know, Jemaine was there, and I just kept thinking to myself before I'd go on set, it's like it's still the same skill set. I had to keep reminding myself, even though everything seemed massive to me, it's still the same skill set. Like, it's still, you know, I know that Jemaine employed me because I enjoy like directing improv, and I knew he wanted a lot of improv in the show. And so, yeah, still having to kind of like just kind of hold my nerve and go, it's still the same skills. And it was great. And then more recently, he invited me and Aman actually to go and direct on Time Bandits. And that was great, even though that was even a much bigger show than What We Do in the Shadows, because I'd already had that big step up, you know. When I went on to Stone Street and saw all the massive sets and all of the people and everything, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. Like, this is all right. And also because it was in New Zealand and we knew a lot of the crew, it kind of felt like making something at home, and the cast was so lovely, and that was kind of easier because I was on my own kind of turf with people I knew a bit more.
Kind of wild to think from popping your head through a buffet table as a lettuce to working on those huge sets, like it's an amazing progression. It's so awesome to kind of have the story. It's cool. It's really
pretty
cool.
fun. And I remember when we were offered to go down and direct, I said to Aman, I was like, what do you reckon? And she was like, oh, we have to do it. And I was like, do we? Like, I was like, I mean, it's going to be big. There's going to be celebrities, and she was like, 100%. I was like, yeah, of course we do. Of course we do. But, like those brilliant job offers, there is that moment where you think, do I have the skills? Like, am I the right person for the job? But then I have to keep reminding myself, well, that's not my responsibility. If someone's offered me the job, they think I am. And then it's always great. It's always fine and it's always great. But that moment, it's always great to have a man to go, do you reckon? She was like, 100%. She said, well, we're going to learn so much, And I was like, okay, great. Let's both go and do an ep,
The other one I want to touch on just before we finish is educators, because I'm interested in the dynamic of you and Jessie working together. It seems like a dream project, and Johnny Bruff as well. Like, you're creating something with your husband, and it's awesome. I love that show. It's so well, and it's been so well received. But is that kind of like a dream project?
Yeah, it is. It is a dream project. It's a show, a TV show that me and Jessie and Johnny Bruff created together, which came from a sketch show that we devised in a scout hall. We did it as a theatre show. A bunch of sketches, and then we took one of the sketches and turned it into educators.
Was your daughter in one of them as well? Was June in one of them?
Yeah, June, and then Emmett, our son, was in the last season, and this is what makes me so happy. Because Jessie and I always joked about when we started having kids, how we should one day be like the all brand Van Griffin family band, because all our kids are called Van Griffins. We merged our names, ridiculous, poor kids. But we're all like, the all brand, all brand Van Griffin family, and now we've kind of done it, not as the all brand Van Griffin family band, but so this next season that we start shooting end of September, season 4, all 3 of the kids are in it. And it's like, oh my gosh. And it's great. So Jessie does all of the storylining, with input from me and Ryan Heron, who's our cinematographer, and all of the actors pitch their own storylines, which is so fun. And then Jessie kind of decides, and I'm a bit of a sounding board about which ones are going to fly and which ones aren't. And then and as you know, it's fully improvised. The storylines are tight. Like Jessie's, and Jessie directs the entire thing as well. So it's nice just to have him at the helm. But it's fun to work with him. Of course, the hierarchy, and of course the director's always going to get more stressed than the actors. I'm an actor in it, as well as one of the creators, but I can just lark around with my mates. I can write up a pitch deck for something in my spare time, in the green room. But one thing I do find quite funny is that because I'm Jessie's wife and we know each other so well, he sometimes will use a bit of a shorthand with me, which he doesn't with the other actors, which can be good and also can be which I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying. But sometimes, I remember one time he was like, okay, everyone, let's just start really loose. Like, let's just start, this is the scenario, let's just see, but I just want offers, okay? So when I say action, just go for it. And then we'll kind of finesse over the next 5 or 6 takes. And so it was like, okay, we're all set up, and then he was like, action. So, and I thought, I'm going to make an offer because I love to make an offer. I was like, hey, Vinny, what were you up to yesterday? And he was like, no. Okay, cut, no, Jackie, not that. And I was just like, what the fuck? He would never say that to one of the actors. But I was just like, I'm just going to suck it up. And then I'm going to talk to him in the car on the way home.
Well, I was wondering about the division between workplace and home. Does that follow to home, some of that workplace
We often have
stuff?
we often all have 2 separate cars because our call times are different, which can sometimes be a good thing just to kind of to chill. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of my downtime talking about creative things anyway. So there's always a merging over. But I think it's good. Jessie and I, because what's fantastic about Jessie is he's a real talker. If he feels something, he will chat about it. He will say something. He's not one of those people who I used to be a little bit more like, and probably still am, just kind of like, just remember it. Do you know what I mean? Just like, he's not like that. He'll be like, why did you say that thing today? You know, which is good. You know, so you get it out and then, oh God, let's have a beer, and, you know, it's fun.
Yeah.
But it's a real treat, that show.
It's so cool. It's been such a cool episode. Just, your story from where you were to where you are. But what's the projects that you're working on now that we should be plugging?
Well, Educator season 4. Obviously, we're just making that, but you know, I love that show so much. So if anyone hasn't seen Educators,
Get in there. It's so good.
It's TVNZ Plus. What else? I mean, Nude Tuesday is actually also now on TVNZ Plus. So
that's where I watched it. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, and just remembering, you know, people that we're only all nude on the Tuesday. It's not like a whole confronting thing. It's just a comedy in gibberish. And
The Office, of course.
And The Office coming up October 18th on Amazon Prime. And probably a whole bunch of other stuff I can't remember about. You know?
Is it like how far in advance are you career planning? Are you thinking, like, do you have to wait for The Office to come to you? Are you writing your own stuff? I guess my question is, do you have a preference? Like directing, writing, acting? What's your superpower out of those? All of the skills to your bow.
Well, I love jumping between, because I love writing, but it can often be quite a kind of, you know, solo thing. And I love that. I love just being by myself in my office, but then I'll get bored of that. And then I'll want to be like flexing my directing muscles. So maybe I'll go and do a commercial if I'm lucky enough to get one, or, you know, direct something, a TV episode. But I'm also, like, my main passion is creating new projects. And so they're always my top priority, but they're also the ones that, of course, like, I'm working really hard to try and get them developed and financed, and you never know when that might happen. It could take a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And so it's great when I get offers of other work that I can jump into something with somebody else's responsibility so I can have fun and earn some money whilst I'm still trying to push my own projects forward, you know, towards hopefully financing and production. But it's a hard time in the industry right now. The only other film coming up, I'm publicising a film that I star in, an Australian film called Audrey. So I've just been to MIF with that, and I'm off to Cinefest Oz. I'm off to Busselton, which is, I found out, it's a 7-hour flight to Perth and then a 2.5-hour drive to Busselton. I'm like, what the actual heck?
Yeah.
So I'm off there on Tuesday, and that's a really fun comedy that I was offered as an actor. So a great director, Natalie Bailey, and writer Lou Sands, and, you know, Aussie comedy. Why not?
Yeah.
So much happening in your life.
Why not?
So much.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming in and sharing it with us. I've like I said, I've loved this episode, and we're going to come to you when we get Taika in. We're going to come to you for some inside info as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with getting him.
Yeah, true story. I've been blown away by your energy in this episode, but also, like, in researching you and hearing you speak about it, like, it's easy to see where you are now for the work that you've put in and the foundation pieces that you've put in. But more than anything, what shined in this episode was your so beautifully talking about your relationship with Jesse, and, like, just how wonderful that is 18 years later. Like, you can see that the love that you have for that man just radiates from you when you speak about him, and even reflecting back on when you first met, it was clear that was right there. That was just such a lovely part of that episode. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, that's cool. Yes, he is a real sweetheart. And I think as a creative person, like, you really rely on, and it doesn't need to be your partner, it can be friends, but I just really rely on people like Aman, Julie, Madeline, Jesse to, like, continue to instill confidence in you and support you and be that person of, like, you absolutely have to do that. Of course you can do it. And Jesse's one of those people. Like, my world became bigger when I met him and all of these wonderful friends. You know, it doesn't have to be a partner, but, you know, you need somebody on your side. Go on, you're going great, you know, and it makes such a difference to your confidence and then your productivity, I think.
Amazing.
So I'm lucky.
Thanks so much, Jackie.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.